Thank you, Madam Chair, Mayor Marsh. So I actually don't, there is a presentation on this, and I don't know, I had an opportunity to speak with our city manager about it prior to this meeting, and he put together a lovely presentation for all of us that should be at our spot, and I am thinking maybe he would like to present on this before I get started. Madam Chair, would it be appropriate to ask our city manager how he'd like to go about this?
Are we supposed to have a handout?
Did you not get one?
No?
I'm the only one that got this?
No, I got one too. Did you get a folder? It might be in your folder.
Yeah, the agenda packet was reposted, Madam Mayor.
Oh, well,
Oh, you printed it, okay.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so we apologize if somebody, and so.
it'll be up on the screen, correct?
Madam Mayor, If I
Okay.
may, I didn't want to turn this into a full-fledged presentation, but because of a tour that was done on the Pulliam building recently by a lot of our council, there was some renewed interest in some of the discussion. I also recognize that some of the council are newer here to us, and this issue has been going on for a long time. I tried to provide some background information which could either by itself, standing alone, let council decide what they wanted to do next, or I have a staff member who's been working on this project this whole time, and I think his hair is gray now, is ready to make a short, quick presentation of these slides,
Okay.
if council would so like.
Are there any objections? No objections? Seeing no objections, go ahead with the
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
presentation. Thank you.
They
I think it
will be
automatically
in a
will.
second here as soon as right now, it's just,
Oh. Then are they on, is your power, looks like your surge protect, your surge protector is dark. Is that part of it? The other one is.
You guys have power over there?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You got the power?
We got the power.
The left side has power.
Could you, behind your laptop?
I think this is the nice list, and that's the naughty list, right? That's why they don't get
somebody's
it.
getting cold.
Yep.
Okay.
So,
Shane?
so
Okay.
you will allow us to continue. We
Put
will,
it up there.
I know, that's what we're going to do, and then I'll have our IT department look at
Over
this.
here, too.
Yeah, so. Anyway, Michael Hogan, our facilities manager, is now ready to go through the presentation in a brief but accurate way.
It's just the back of the building.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Michael Hogan, Facilities Operations Manager. And this will be brief and accurate. So here we go. We have a Pulliam Community Building. We've been at this for many, many years. Before even I got here, this project has been in process. So I've been working on this project for over 5 years now. And so we wanted to give you a general cost update of where we were. Some of you were at a meeting at the Pulliam Building where we presented some posters. Those numbers were as of that day. Like, if you gave me that much money that day, that's what we could finish the building with. Then I was asked to, with the increased enthusiasm, to say, well, so like, how could you do this, like actually do it, like in a couple years? So there's no way that we could finish the building next year. We would finish in 2023. So based on where we're at, we believe it'll take around $8,202,250 to finish in 2023. And that's based on the escalation we're seeing now in the market, finding materials, finding labor. So that brings the total project cost to $11,920,091. We've accomplished to date $3,717,841, which gives you the remaining work. And then we do have some revenues available, which we'll talk about on the next slide. But the most important thing is we're short $3,483,891 to get this project done. So this is a little history of where we're at. The Pulliam Community Foundation, has put $1.25 million in. We've had some grants of $326,000, and the City of Loveland General Fund has put in the rest for the total revenue to date you see there. And as opposed to just reading these slides to you, you can see what we've expended in design, construction, art and public places, professional services, for a total of $3,717,841. That leaves us in the piggy bank right now. We're sitting on $718,359, and the city will continue to put $500,000 a year into that piggy bank. We've agreed to do that. So with that, here's the funding we know or hope is coming. We have that current fund balance right now. The Pulliam Foundation believes they can bring another $1 million to the table in those 2 years. And then we have 2 grants from Congressman Negus's office. One that we know is pending appropriations for $1 million, and one that Congressman Negus has requested for an additional $1 million. Those are not in the piggy bank. We don't have those here. We have not received those monies. And then we have the City of Loveland General Fund budget. We do, in the budget, have $1 million set aside to go into this group. So for a total estimated income right now, $4,718,359. So with that, our funding gap again is $3,483,891. Couple of things we want you to consider. We don't want you to talk about it today. We just want you to start letting this kind of roll around in your minds, and we'll be coming back to you at a study session later. We need you to talk about and start thinking about the fact that this building will have an increased O&M cost once we refinish it and it starts to engage, okay? In the past, it's about $30,000 a year or so that it costs to run the building. This building is in no way energy efficient, nor was it ever designed to be. When we start cooling this building in the summertime and heating it in the winter, our O&M costs are going to increase. We start doing events every day in this building. It's going to require FM staff. Another building attendant needs to be hired to manage the setup, takedown, cleanup of the building, as well as cultural services staff is going to be needed as well to do the programming. So we just want you to be aware of that. We also want you to be aware the cost recovery right now is estimated about 35%. That's changed multiple times over the 5 years I've been here of where council wanted us to be on that and what they wanted this building to be. So we want you to start thinking about that together, talk to your constituents about where we're at. Our estimate right now, and this is Michael's estimate, right? Not Susan's estimate, is about $87,000 a year in revenue from rentals, which will not offset the O&M costs. And then the last one, this is a mission statement that I just threw together. One thing we need council to guide us on, my team has done all the work behind the scenes. We've got the electrical in, the plumbing in, all that stuff that nobody cares about but me. We are to the finishing. And so we need a mission statement from council guided so that I know exactly what to finish this building to be. Is it going to be a performing arts building? That's a different finish than purely on the other side, which is Girl Scouts and things like that. That's a different finish. So we want to make sure that we're all on the same page as to what the mission of this building is going to be so that I can take that, finalize the construction drawings, and produce that for us. So with that, questions?
So
Right, yes, go ahead.
thank you for your presentation. Thank you both for making that happen, and your team for making that happen. So the reason that I wanted to bring this forward tonight is, and you had mentioned that there will be a conversation about O&M, but that's down the road. A mission statement sounds lovely, but that's probably a teensy bit down the road as well. Tonight, what I wanted to ask council to do is to, we could consider it potentially as a legacy project, but what I'd really like us to do is to acknowledge the fact that we own this building as a city. It's been going on for nearly a dozen years. We recently, for our new council members who didn't already know this, or even if you did, a refresher, we've recently invested our general fund dollars, our sales tax revenue dollars, into that area in 2 different buildings, or 2 different areas of that city, or that block. So this old county building, which it used to be a library even, I don't know if you know that building, just to the, northeast of that, of the Pulliam. And then just to the southeast of that, we put a good amount of money and worked really, well, we haven't. The developer worked very hard on that corner called the Cleveland Station on 5th and Cleveland. But we really supported that. It went through DDA, it went through all of these organizations that made all of this happen. We've invested in Cleveland in a big way. We have an empty, vacant building with a fence around it that has no end in sight. It needs $3.5 million. We have a contingency or a reserve fund as a council that I would like us to consider putting those dollars toward, to finish this project, to secure the investment that we've already made in this region, and to open this as the, whatever we decide for our mission, but community building that I believe it could be. I am certain that the investors in that area would appreciate having a completed building and not a building that, may or may not be completed, in the next 6 to 7 years. And that's one thing that wasn't said, but if we only budget $500 annually, it says it could take 6 to 7 years to complete this project. And that, I imagine, is if building supplies stay at the rate that they're at right now. We all just had a recent discussion about how they're up over 50%. Everybody knows that inflation is going through the roof. I think now is the time to act. Money is cheap, and I think we need to move on this for our downtown. So I'm asking today if, I don't know if it could be maybe even a motion, that we would fully fund this project, that we would ask our city staff to find a way to fully fund this project as of today.
All right, thank you. I believe Councilor McFall, followed by Councilor Fogel.
Councilor Fogel.
Was first, all right, thank you for letting me know that. Councilor Fogel, followed by McFall.
Well, first of all, I want to get a couple of things straightened out. When it comes to the Cleveland Station project, the money that's being invested in the Cleveland Station project is a portion of the money that project will generate when fully opened. In fact, it's about 18, if memory serves, and don't quote me, I think it's about 18% of the money that project will generate. So it is a money maker, and then we're reinvesting some of it, okay? Without knowing what the projected O&M of this building is, I couldn't support moving forward with anything, because adding a huge O&M bill to the city coffer without knowing about it ahead of time, I think would be really, really a stretch. We'd all love to see the Pulliam done. Michael, could I ask a couple of questions? Is that okay, Mayor?
Go ahead. Yes, he's our presenter.
Okay, good.
Yes.
When this project first started, when council took on this project, how many years ago now?
It's before my time, so it's at least 10 years ago it started.
And it really started in earnest, I think.
6 years ago.
About 6 years ago. The ticket on the whole project was $7 million, wasn't it?
That is correct.
Okay. How much of the difference between 7 and 11 million? What I need to know, and I know you won't have the numbers now, what I need to know is how much of that is scope creep and how much of it is inflation. Those two numbers would be critical to my decision, okay? Because, if it's scope creep, then we need to start talking about how that happened and what we're getting for our money. If it's inflation, that's out of our control and out of yours, unfortunately. The original amount that was going to be donated by the Pulliam Foundation was how much?
I will have to defer. I don't have that off the top of my head. I'd have to look at the.
Okay, can you have that when we come back with another discussion about this project? We need to know what that is. Grant funding, hallelujah, that's wonderful, okay? City of Loveland General Fund, you're also saying that we decided to put $500 annually towards the Pulliam project. I'd like to know when that was decided.
Long time ago.
Was it quite a while ago?
2016.
Okay, that's why I've
Wait
slept
till you
since, so that's why I forgot about it. But do you have any feel for what the O&M is going to be based on what you said with staff? You said you figured it out and said you're going to generate about $86,000 a year. How much is that going to cost to generate?
My estimate is $250,000
A year and
a year in O&M costs, mostly because I don't know how the building's going to react to being cooled. The lamella truss roof is specifically designed to allow heat to move through it, to melt the snow off of it. It's not designed to carry a snow load. So the roof is designed to allow heat and temperature to move through it. So when I start to cool the building, I just am not sure what that cost is going to be. And so I've estimated high. I think I always give you a number that I'm going to come in under. But $250,000, I think, is close to where we'll be at.
does that include staffing?
That does include staffing, yes.
How many staff people does this take?
Right now, depending on your mission statement and how exactly you want this building to work and what it needs to host, if it's what it was before, which is just group meetings, then it's one staff member in facilities. If you want to do shows and those type of things where cultural services get involved, I have not had a chance to work with Susan about what her staffing needs look like at that building to support that level. This is just what it was when I took over, which is lots of just general meetings where we set up tables, take down tables. It does include that staff member.
From a personal standpoint, I'd want to know the answer to all those questions before I start giving away $4.436 million of the city's money towards the project. It's not giving it away. We're investing it in a building we own, and I understand that. Now, way back when, back to probably 5-6 years ago, the council also generated a ton of interest in having an outside company manage this building. What happened to that?
It looks like the city.
I will defer to
Well,
Susan.
and the city manager looks like he would like to weigh in.
I was going to ask.
For Susan, all right, Susan.
Our historic
Come on forward, Susan, nice to
brief
see you.
preview on this, please.
Susan.
Susan Eisen, Cultural Services Director. Before I answer that question, I'd like to share something, and as many of you know, I've been around a long time. And I did not bring this tonight, believe it or not, because we were talking about the Pulliam building. This is a folder that I carry to all my meetings, and this has been in my folder for years. It's from 1987. It's a tax initiative for Loveland for capital projects. And first on the list is the community building. So in answer to your question of how long it's been, it has been since 1987. So a lot longer than 6 years.
34 years.
So in answer to your question about having someone else run the building, there was extensive work done, and I was not personally involved in that. It's when Mike Scholl was here, of trying to get an outside vendor to come in, and there was little interest in it. And so that idea was dropped.
So that fell apart.
Yes.
Now, you do bring up an interesting point, Susan, so is it okay if I ask her questions, Madam Mayor?
Yes, she's your presenter at this point.
Oh, okay, good.
You have the
So
floor.
how many times have we put this on the tax ballot, trying to get taxes to help pay for it?
I think only twice, the most recent one and the one back then.
In 97?
As far as I know, I can't think of any that's been in between. So it was 20-some years in between the two.
Unfortunately, both times the public said no.
That's correct.
So is this going to require, with what Michael's talking about, is it going to require extra staff at your level?
Well, and this is a little bit of the chicken and the egg issue that we have, is that it really depends on how the building is used. Ever since I was told that this was going to be part of the Cultural Services Department, I've been working closely with Michael and with Norm Ramey, and Norm passes on, or sometimes I get them directly, requests for use of the building. So I've got a folder in my office of people who say, I want to do a conference, I want to have a wedding, I want to do monthly meetings, I want to do church services. I have a whole folder full of people that want to use it. Those are rentals. Rentals are different than doing performances, and it's a little bit, but not totally analogous to the Rialto. Our bread and butter is when we present performances and people come and fill the house. That helps support making affordable community use for people who want to use it for a variety of reasons. So if you want to have it available for the community at an affordable cost, and I think that's the expectation, then the revenue is going to be less than if you get aggressive and try to do performances. And you can see it in the Rialto, how the revenues have changed since we've started presenting performances. Obviously, the venues are not exactly the same, but the Pulliam building lends itself better for some performances. It just depends on what type they are. But that requires more staff. So we really need to know how you would like to use the building before we can give you more accurate numbers about the operating cost and the potential revenue.
Thank you. Excuse me, thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Does that complete your,
For now.
okay, thank you.
Go ahead,
Counselor McFall, please.
Susan? Go ahead.
Susan, I think you
Yeah,
might want to stay close.
Actually, you and Michael, and it was something that Michael said originally that piqued my curiosity on this. Michael had an estimated O&M of 87.5, but he said it doesn't match your O&M. I'm curious as to what your O&M is.
That's because we don't know how the building is going to be used. Michael is looking at what it takes to open the building and have people set up and tear down and monitor the building. But if you start doing other programming in the building, then that changes the picture.
So basically, until we can guide you on how we want the building used, we really won't get an official O&M on this.
And I'd say council has guided us up to this point. We just need that final, this is what it's going to be.
Mission statement.
Yeah, so I don't want to present that we've been off willy-nilly making it up as we go along. Council has guided us as to what this needs to be. We just are at that point where we need the final ruling, so that we can get the proper lighting for Susan or not, depending on what we're going to do. It changes the design of what we're gonna do. And the O&M is a $250,000. That number was my estimate on rental
Okay,
for the year.
gotcha. Okay, appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, Counselor Overcash?
Thank you. Councilor Samson, thanks for bringing this to our attention. I'm not comfortable making a commitment this evening of committing resources, time and money, because there's a lot of unanswered questions already. And I would look to staff recommendations and cultural services of how the community would like to see this used and bring that. You don't want council becoming a planning organization for finishing touches on that building. I think our commitment in 2016 was to start putting money towards it in a grant, matching funds with our citizens to get this thing moving. So we have some work to do. I would like to suggest that later in a few minutes, we're going to be reviewing the agenda for the Councilor Annual Retreat. And one of the items on that, on the agenda, the proposed agenda, is for council to discuss where they wish to have areas of focus over the next 2 years to 5 years. Where are we going to invest the limited resources that we have? Our budget certainly isn't flush. We're running at a deficit. Well, excuse me, I won't say a deficit. I just know we're spending more than we're taking in. That's what I understand. But I think we want to have that discussion, our priorities. Where do we want to put our priorities? Now, we know that downtown is an area that we've been committed to over the years. And this certainly has a role to play in that downtown. So we're correct on that. But I think before we make a commitment of funds, we have to be discussing what are our priorities. And when we make that commitment, however we make it, we're giving up something. And I think we need to have that discussion before we make these types of spending commitments. So I would like to ensure that we remember this conversation tonight and bring it up during our councilor retreat, which we'll have a motion on to move it to February 5th so we can continue to move down this path of getting this building back into the hands of the public.
Is that a motion, Councilor?
No, it's a request. And my rationale for just waiting until we can have that councilor retreat so we can determine what our main priorities are going to be.
All right, Counselor Foley?
Thank you. Thanks for coming out and presenting this. And I love old buildings. I love, seeing them come back to life and being repurposed into new things, and still bringing that character and charm that you don't get from the newer buildings these days. With that said, there's a lot of opportunity to bring these buildings up and make them sometimes even more efficient and work better. And you mentioned something about, hey, this is going to cost a lot basically to heat the courtyard and essentially open air with the roof and the way the roof is designed. Has there been any conversation about looking at the types of systems that they could put up there, particularly like snow melt systems and things like that they can integrate in with the roofs, and then also add an insulation factor to bring the R factor up on that particular building to actually make it more efficient and more like a green or a LEED certified building from that standpoint. And while I know you're limited on funds, but sometimes, yes, we can get to the to the finish line, but at what cost down the road? And then looking at that, does it make sense to hold back a little bit, raise some more money to be able to put in those additional features to where it makes it not only cost effective for the building, but down the road, that's gonna benefit us all from that standpoint, and it's starting to lead the way of how newer standards should be applied, and we could be a model of that.
Thank you for that question, Councilor Foley. The answer is yes, we did look into this early. There, on the books are 3 failures of lamella truss roofs, which were attempted to be adjusted in some way, either additional insulation put on or a change of material on top that did not allow it to do what it was designed to do, and all 3 of those were catastrophic failures of the roof system. So at that point, we did not expend more dollars or more time in researching additional ways to try to move around that. We absolutely could if that's, the direction we want to move. If we want to look at LEED certification for this building, we can pursue that. But in my view, I don't think it would be cost effective at this time.
And so what was that cost estimate to basically re-roof this thing or put a new system in that would handle that?
We never even got to a cost estimate after we found the 3 catastrophic failures. We did not even
That's
pursue
using
that.
the current one, correct? The current roof
That was
system that's in there?
people that modified the current lamella system with, one of them was they went in and put additional insulation inside all those little cavities. That caused the roof to not breathe enough heat, and then the snow load collapsed the roof. The other one was they put a foil barrier over the top to try to reflect the heat, and unfortunately, it didn't allow the heat to move through like it needed to clear, and it also collapsed. And so,
Talking a whole new system, a whole new.
well, the lamella truss roof is one of the main points of that building. It's one of its. We would hate to tear that out and try to redo it.
They don't have a look-alike, stronger, better, more efficient version of that?
I have not looked that up. We can look at that.
Because my thought is we get heavy snow, and at some point, let's say the heater goes out and we get a snowstorm, that roof's coming in. So thinking about those types of things sorry to be doom and gloom on that, but that would be something I would question. Also, how big is this in terms of, and what is the projection of the occupancy load on that building?
I don't have the plans in front of me, but fire was allowing us right around 500 people standing on the main floor. That was the new occupancy load. That requires us to build some bar areas in the back to limit that because we can't go over 500 on that main floor standing.
Okay, and what does that look like in terms of traffic and parking and that load in the downtown infrastructure as we see it right now?
We have not done a parking or traffic study on that. We do own the parking lot behind the Rialto as well as the 2 parking lots on Railroad that we lease from the railroad.
Okay, so have we ever looked at any parking garages or anything like that, or considered that over there too?
No, not with our limited budget. We have not looked into that.
That's all I have. Thank you.
All right, Councilor Ball?
Yeah, I just want to, Dana, have you been in the building? Okay, well, and I really welcome your questions. Please go in the building and you'll see it is the most unique architectural feature is the roof. From inside, it's just spectacular, and that you don't even see it from the outside. Okay, I'll just be quick, but I really want to thank Andrea for bringing this forward. I've been in favor of this project since its inception. It is a legacy project. I think we need to appreciate the things that we've accomplished. I don't believe there's been any scope creep. The Pulliam Foundation has performed admirably. They've raised much more money than they thought they would. You can see the construction due diligence is excellent. We've accomplished all those things. I don't think the operation and maintenance is a relevant question. Why? It's our building. We decided to restore it. It is a legacy project, and we're not going to have any of those answers until we get it open and we begin to market it. So to try to speculate and get held up on operation and maintenance, I mean, that horse and 2 or 3 carriages and stallions went out of that barn, 10 years ago. So we've moved a long ways. I would also remind, and then because we're going to talk about this later, but it sits right across the street on Cleveland from our other city big property, the museum, that definitely needs to be renovated. This could not be more of a core area. So add the museum to the ones that the buildings that Andrea mentioned, and I mean, this will come to be. It's just a question, and I think the obvious operator, once it's established and once it's determined the best uses and the most economical, it will be run by Susan through Cultural Services and with the Rialto. And they will book some wonderful things into this. So, but it's all just, it's just speculation, what we're going to make on it. And obviously it will never, it'll never pay for itself, and that's not the function of this building.
Thank you. Councilor Olson?
Okay, thank you. For a lot of people in the city, this building causes a lot of nostalgia, a lot of emotion. I look at the building and I can't help but wonder if the same contractor that built the Pentagon built this building. It is a concrete bunker. So if anything's going on, that's the building I'm heading to, because you're well protected in that concrete thing. Norm Ramey's done just an amazing job in getting the community to step up to the plate and help fund this project. But what it boiled down to, this is really a want versus a need. It's a nice building. It'd be great to have it functional. I disagree with Councilor Ball. The maintenance and operations is a consideration. But it's also an investment into the community. We're doing it with the Rialto. We're still providing funds to that. So this probably will never be a moneymaker, as Councilor Ball pointed out. I think the timing's not good. Our budget has been delicately balanced. We don't have $3.5 million laying around. If we were to take that out of the available funds, we got a spreadsheet on the 7th, and we got about $3.8 million at the ending fund balance for the year. So to use that up for a gee whiz nice project, I just don't think is responsible from council that we would allocate our funds to that. I think we continue on the path we're on and see what Norm can do to help raise some additional funds. I question, and what I heard from Congressman Negus's office is the second $1,000 is somewhat speculative, or million. Yeah, so we may not even get that, which means now it's $4.5 million that we're short. So I wouldn't support at this point in time council using up all its reserves to fund this nice-to-have building.
Thank you. And a little little history for people that aren't familiar with the Pulliam building. The Pulliam family donated the land and 20,000 to the building of this, and then a federal get people back to work during the Depression added 140,000, and that's how this building came to be. And the Pulliam family generously donated it to the city of Loveland as a community gathering place. So that's the history, and we have a descendant of the Pulliam family here tonight. John Mark Patterson is a family descendant. My view on this is, and I was a private citizen when I stood at the podium and spoke about this is a city-owned building that fell into disrepair, in part because of the Americans with Disability Act. It was always put off, updating the building to bring it up to code. And so we've lost this wonderful asset for decades because it didn't meet requirements. And when we talk about it, 500 people can stand. There's also a balcony that hopefully at some point would be refurbished and would do additional. Imagine 500 people coming into downtown to go to a concert. They come in early and they have dinner. They go for drinks. They go for coffee, a brewery. They stay afterwards. They go into our boutiques. This is additional tax revenue to the city of Loveland. And just as importantly, and probably more, is the help to all of our downtown businesses. They will all benefit from this. People that aren't familiar with downtown Loveland will be drawn here for a concert, and they'll see Loveland downtown for the first time. They'll come back, they'll tell their families. People will book the Marriott Hotel. You know, this is a great asset, you know, not only for our residents, it's for our general fund, it's for our small businesses. This is an investment and a catalyst into downtown. So I would support expediting the financing of this. It only gets more expensive the longer we delay. And our businesses aren't helped the longer we delay. Our tax revenues aren't helped the longer we delay. So I would agree to expedite it and look to our city manager and staff to come up with the best way, and perhaps that's bonding. I'm not sure how we would get the funds, but I would support expediting it. Now, Councilor Samson's light was on, and then Councilor Foley.
Well, I was just going to speak to the suggestions made since this was my item. So if you'd like, Madam Chair, Councilor Foley.
Councilor Foley, do you have additional feedback?
Yeah, I just think that there's a lot more consideration to do. I mean, and it's not, I mean, don't take that I'm trying to poo-poo the project. But I'm just thinking that there's a lot more opportunity here, and we've got to look a little bit bigger than just at this building. Like you're saying, what is that impact? What is that projected out? Well, it all goes back to what the occupancy that we're going to put in there as well. So is this going to be a community center? Is it going to be a civic center? Is it going to be a conference center? Is it going to be a performing arts? Is it going to be roll the dice and pick whatever you want? Is it, you know, is there going to be a public partnership in there as well, where there's shops that might be little boutiques in there? There's a lot there that needs to be answered before I can even think about saying, yeah, I'm on board. And I do worry just from my job of what I do. I see catastrophic events all the time. I see total losses all the time. And when I think about that, there's a lot of beauty of that. But when I hear, hey, this thing could collapse if one little thing goes wrong,
No, that's not the issue.
I don't like, we can't put extra insulation on. The heat has to get the snow load off. If the snow load's too much, that roof's coming in. That tells me we need to think about that piece as a liability as well, because furnaces go out, heat pumps go out, backup heat pumps go out, and it still snows, and the wind blows. It's not that I'm saying we change the character, but there are brilliant minds out there that have a solution to make it look like it is and be strong enough and with different products, et cetera, to possibly look at that. I'm just saying we research it, because that's a concern that I have with this. And then also, it's gonna really matter on what we're thinking. We gotta look at that traffic aspect of it. What's the impact of bringing 500 more people in downtown? Where are you gonna park them? You know, what is that gonna do to the roads and everything else? If we've got other events going on in the city, in downtown, and that's going on as well, it's hustling and bustling, but how are we moving people in and out safely? And those types of things. So that's what I'm saying in terms of, I think there's a little bit more studying that needs to be done, a little bit more of structure, thinking big picture before we look at what that investment's gonna do, because then we can really see what that yield's gonna look like. That's all.
Nope, I hear what you're saying. You're asking for more information. Councilor Samson.
Well, okay, so I think we probably should bring this train to the station, but I want to say thank you all for your consideration of this tonight. If you haven't already gone to see the Pulliam, I think you really should. Norm is a wonderful tour guide. He's done, as Councilor Ball said, an incredible job fundraising for this. He absolutely loves this building, and I'd like to thank the Pulliam Foundation and all the donors and Norm, because this is our city. I mean, excuse me, this is our building, the city building. So that's like raising funds to get the toilets fixed in City Hall. I mean, really, what they have done for this building and what they have done for the city, really as a favor, is pretty incredible, I think, and they've raised a significant amount of money. And if you happen to just take a peek at the donor list and how many, even hundreds of thousands of dollars, some families have gifted, I wouldn't say that they don't think that this should be one of our priorities. They've clearly made it one of their own priorities. And that's not to say that, you know, the few that are able, fortunately, to give that amount of money are the ones that should make the decision on this. But I think we have an onus to acknowledge the work and the effort and the investment that's been put in by our private citizens. So I would just encourage you to take a look at that and meet with Norm and go to the building. And I think we already have committed to whatever the O&M is, because this is our building and we've committed to doing work on it. So when we have an opportunity to do the mission statement, I think that will be a better indicator, and I appreciate that. I had one quick question for Susan, if I could, before I close out.
Susan, are you still with us? Come on back up, please. Getting your steps in tonight, Susan. You're getting your steps in.
Yes, I
So thank you, Susan, and thank you for the work you're doing with the Rialto, too. As you mentioned, it's started to really generate a lot of revenue. You guys are doing amazing stuff there right now. You mentioned, you showed your pamphlet about the tax initiative. Did you, maybe I misheard you, did you say 1987?
Yes, I did.
Okay, and was the building vacant at that time?
It had minimal use for a number of years. Parks and Rec was in there for a while. Facilities management was in, but they were only using the front offices mostly.
Okay.
And the community theater had it as their home for a number of years. And when the Rialto opened in the 90s, they moved over to the Rialto and removed everything else because they were starting to have problems with the building, and it was really starting to get to the point where it wasn't functional for them, mostly because of ADA rules.
And that's all been updated, the ADA compliance. I think there's one thing left to finish on the building, but that has been made a priority, that anybody who would require any sort of accessibility, it's available to them in this building, which is outstanding. I can't believe a community theater used it, because there's no there aren't wings. Like, there's nowhere to, that's pretty amazing that they did that. So that was my question, really, so thank you. So 1987.
Susan is here, if I
Yes.
can interrupt. Susan, there was a question earlier, I think, by Councilor Fogel in regarding to the increase in cost. My understanding is part of that is we didn't initially kind of plan for the AV, theater lighting, theater sound, and some of those costs are those costs.
Right.
Is that correct?
And obviously, there's a huge range of, the technical aspects of that. But the truth is, to have even basic services, say, we've already had a request for several service clubs to have their weekly meetings there. They do presentations. You have to have AV for people to do even basic things. If you start turning it into a major performing arts facility, then you have a higher level of technical needs. But I don't think that's where we want to start. We just want to make it functional for people in the beginning and for all the different uses that have been requested already.
All right, thank you. I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead, Councilor Samson.
So, you know, it was brought up that it was on the ballot a couple of times. I don't believe it was alone on the ballot. I don't think that our residents have necessarily voted this specific item down. If anything, the foundation has proven that our residents do care about this and that this is an important building for them. And I just, one last, just something for you to think about is I was born in 1986. And so for 34 years, for the entirety of my life, this building has been in disrepair. It has been, and maybe this isn't a fair thing to say, but an eyesore. It maybe has even been a safety hazard downtown, and we have neglected it and done nothing. And we now see people who are coming in from outside of our city investing in that area, and I think it's time that we step up to the plate. So I appreciate that we would further continue this conversation at a later date, as Councilor Overcash requested and suggested. I think that's wonderful. I think this is really something that everyone needs to consider. And actually, we have some history there too as a city council. That was our, I think, original, right? City Hall and city council chambers. So worth your time to go check it out. And thank you all for entertaining this idea. If when our city manager comes back, could also bring some options for the budget, like you had mentioned, Madam Chair, and also what our current reserve is if we were to commit anything at this point. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilor. Oh, Councilor Olson turned his off. Councilor Fogel?
I have a quick question for Susan.
Susan, I'm sorry, I should
Come
have.
on down. More of a request for information, Susan, because I think you're going to have to do a little research.
I'm not sure if I sat on the right side or the wrong side of the room.
Well, who knows? What I'd like to see when we come back with more information is that all the performing arts centers around us, Lincoln Center, Greeley, Longmont, all of those have been funded through tax initiatives, if I'm not mistaken. And I'd like to just see some statistics on those. You know, how much was funded with city general fund dollars, how much was funded with tax initiative dollars, et cetera. I think that's a worthwhile thing for us to look at, because Councilor Samson does bring up a good point. The Pulliam's never been on the ballot by itself. You know, it's always been bundled with other stuff, and perhaps some of the distaste for whatever tax initiative was happening was for the other stuff. So I think it's important that we look at the funding, really, I guess what I'm asking for, the funding sources for the other performing arts centers around us.
Okay, we
know.
can certainly look into that because I do not know the answer right now.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect you to, but I know you'll find it.
I will.
Thank you.
All right, and that's okay with you, city manager? Yes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, it's okay with me if it's an agenda item where we're going to be talking next.
Yep, okay.
Otherwise, there's a lot of work here.
That's what I was asking you. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Councilor Samson, for bringing that up. The next item is actually under new business is one that I want to